TFA fam, what is up? What is happening? We are back. We are on to week 5 waiver ads. Thankfully, there wasn't a lot of carnage this week. We didn't have a ton of injuries, so there's not a lot here. But I definitely think there's some definite names, and we do have buys starting this week. We have the Chargers, Bucks, Seahawks, and Browns all on buys this week. So I think some of these guys will be relevant, especially in the quarterback position. So let's just go ahead and get it started, and let's talk about some options here at quarterback. Now, this week, I do have C.J. Stroud. He is a top 12 quarterback right now through the first 4 weeks of the season, and I do think he's more than just a streaming option. He's still only rostered in 47% of leagues. They do get Atlanta this week, but I am going to guess in most competitive 12-team leagues, he's probably rostered. But he has now produced 3 straight 20-point weeks, and now they get to take on the Falcons. The Texans have the 14th easiest remaining schedule for quarterbacks, and Stroud is, like I said, is not just a streaming option, but is a must-add in all formats at this point. So love CJ Stroud, love seeing what he's been able to do, and a lot of there was a lot of negativity surrounding him, heading into the season where people thought that he was going to be a bust, and he has definitely shoved it down their throats to this point. Next up, let's hit on Matthew Stafford, who continues to play really well, considering he hasn't had Cooper Kupp, but he is rostered in 48% of leagues. Now, they get a matchup against Philadelphia this week, but Stafford has thrown for 300-plus yards in 3 of 4 games this season, and like I said, has done it without Cooper Kupp. Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell have held down the fort. However, Kupp could be back in week 5. But even if he doesn't, the Rams get a nice matchup against the Eagles defense that has now allowed the 5th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. Next up, let's talk about Sam Howell. He is only rostered in 18% of leagues. Now, this matchup they get against Chicago this week, but today he completed 29 of 41 for 290 yards and a score. He also added 6 carries for 40 yards and good for 20 fantasy points. Howell had a nice bounce-back game against a brutal he had a nice bounce-back game after a brutal game against the Bills week prior. So I do think Sam Howell is in play against the Chicago defense. And then lastly, I did not think I was going to have Joshua Dobbs on here, but he's only rostered in 5% of leagues. And Dobbs has quietly put together a strong start to the season. He has put up 17 or more fantasy points in 3 straight games. More intriguing, he has at least 40 rushing yards in 3 straight games as well. He's now rushed the ball 18 times over the past 2 games. It is coming off his best performance against one of the best defenses in the league. He played 28 of 41 for 265 yards and 2 scores and rushed 12 times for 48 yards today. So Joshua Dobbs is quietly moving up, but he's getting close to being a top 15 or a top 12 quarterback. He is already a top 18 quarterback, and that was prior to today. And I'm going to guess he's going to be even higher than that after today. So Joshua Dobbs is actually a decent streaming option at home this week against the Bengals.
Definitely not something I was prepared to hear you say. But moving on to the running back position, Kev, like you were mentioning at the top, not a lot of injuries. So really aren't, when it comes to the running back positions, a lot of guys that I would consider must-adds. I threw Jaleel McLaughlin here at the top, but I put the little question mark there just because it does seem like Javonte Williams, the report that came out is that he is not expected to miss much, if any time. So not entirely sure what that means, but if we do find out that Javonte could be out for a game with the hip flexor injury that he sustained today, it would be Jaleel McLaughlin as a kind of like a spot start because it doesn't seem to be anything long-term for Javonte, but he did have a pretty explosive day, had over 100 total yards and a touchdown, looked a lot better than Samaje Perine did at that as well. So again, we're going to have to pay attention to this, see if something comes out. I wouldn't go crazy with McLaughlin just because it doesn't seem like it's going to be anything long-term for Javonte Williams. So unless we hear that he's going to be out, I would pump the brakes a little bit on Jaleel McLaughlin, but he's someone who you could look to if you had, if you were having some running back issues. Other than that, this sets up much more of a week to just grab some handcuff type guys and just stash them on the bench. We see this every, almost every week where a running back goes down. We already had Jerome Ford and guys like that. If you roster these guys ahead of time, then you don't have to fight the waiver wire for it. So looking at guys like Chuba Hubbard, Zach Charbonnet, Kenneth Gainwell is still out there. I think he was only rostered in like 45% of ESPN leagues. So if he's out there, he definitely needs to be added. Roshan Johnson, this is an interesting one we're going to have to pay attention to. Looked like it was getting closer to being a true 50-50 split. And then in today's game, Khalil Herbert just completely took over that backfield. So I'm going to keep him here in the handcuff plus territory, but that's definitely a situation we need to monitor going forward. And then your true handcuffs, guys like Tank Bigsby, Eli Mitchell, Ronnie Rivers looks like he is going to be the guy behind Kyron Williams with the Rams. And then some guys on the watch list, Keyshawn Vaughn. We saw that he was inactive, I think, the first 2 weeks. Only played on special teams last week, but then he did see 20 snaps today behind Rashad White, and we did not see anything out of Sean Tucker, and Chase Edmonds has been put on IR. So we can watch Keyshawn Vaughn going forward, and then Keaton Mitchell, the rookie running back for the Ravens, is eligible to come off of IR next week. I don't really know what to do here, to be honest. Justice Hill is still playing okay. We saw Gus Edwards dominate the snaps today. They haven't gotten a ton of production out of the running back position. But Keaton Mitchell, we're talking about a 180-pound running back, but we did see him pop in the preseason. So he's a name in deeper leagues, or if you have a deeper bench, you could look to stash, but he's someone to pay attention to going forward.
Of course, just trying to slight my guy, Keaton Mitchell.
He's slight himself.
He is slight himself. He is 5'8", 180 pounds, but he is super explosive. Ran a 4.37 at the combine. He also has an 88th percentile burst score. And like I said, like he did pop in the preseason. Like he looked really good in the preseason. So with how bad these running backs are, because really nobody has separated themselves in this backfield for the Ravens, it
Right.
wouldn't shock me to see him get more opportunity. I mean, we talked about Devon Achane, right? Like he is not a big running back either. Like he is a sub 200-pound running back. I think even a sub 190 running back. So there's not a massive difference between these two. And so I do think there is a scenario where Keaton Mitchell can become valuable. And in the state of the running back position right now, I don't mind rostering him. And then I will say this on Jaleel McLaughlin. I do think that he's worth adding no matter what, whether Javonte Williams misses time or not, because he has looked like the most explosive running back they have right now. And in the preseason, McLaughlin also was super productive. I mean, he had over 140 yards, 3 scores in the preseason. And so this could be much more of a long-term option for people. And maybe he is somebody that takes over the spot for Samaje Perine, and he is the number 2 running back, behind Javonte Williams. And this is becoming a true 50-50 split. So I think those two would be the ones that I do think I have the most interest in adding right now, at least at the running back position. I think makes the most sense. And then let's go over to wide receiver. Michael Wilson is on here. Shout out to Cody, who in the preseason, before the season started, was somebody that he was high on that talked about as a nice sleeper option. And Michael Wilson finally broke out. Rookie third-round pick. Hauled in 7 of his targets for 76 yards and 2 touchdowns today. This is a big breakout game for him. Wilson now has 55 yards or more in 3 straight games, and he now has 237 yards and 2 scores through the first 4 games. So Michael Wilson, only rostered in 2% of leagues, is somebody that I am definitely looking to add. Jaden Reed next up. He shouldn't be available in many leagues, but or he should be available in this many leagues, but Reed has been productive through 4 weeks of the season. Reed has seen 5 or more targets in every game this year. And he figures to continue to see opportunities every single week within this offense. Next up, Jameson Williams, a little surprise, but he is now eligible to play in week 5 after he had his suspension reduced from 6 to 4 games. The Lions will welcome back their former first-round pick for the season. And he enters an offense that's one of the best in the league. And so I do think Jameson Williams is definitely worth an add. He's obviously come back much faster than what people thought he was going to, because they got his suspension reduced. We'll have to see. Now, he has missed, obviously, the last 4 weeks of the season, but I do think that he is somebody that we should be looking to add. Next up, Michael Gallup. Gallup has been targeted 13 times over the past 2 games and has put together back-to-back double-digit fantasy performances, despite the Cowboys crushing the Patriots early today. But Gallup has started to look better and better his second year post ACL. And so I do like Michael Gallup. I think he should be rostered more leagues. And Brandon Cooks really has done absolutely nothing. So right now, Gallup looks like the wide receiver 2 on this Cowboys offense. And as they enter a much harder portion of their schedule where they're not going to be able to boat race 3 of the last 4 teams that they've I do think Michael Gallup is somebody, especially with as a flex option with bye weeks now happening, should be makes a lot more sense. Next up is Tyler Boyd. We're gonna have to see how much time T. Higgins misses with fractured ribs, but Boyd does step into the wide receiver two roles. Now, don't get it twisted. This Bengals offense looks absolutely inept right now, but you have to imagine they're going to figure out a way to turn this around at some point. And Boyd has been targeted 24 times over the past 3 games, and now we'll see the Cardinals and Seahawks over the next 2 games. So that is a better matchup this week against these two teams, and I do not expect T. Higgins likely to play this week. So Tyler Boyd is definitely on my radar. Darnell Mooney, rostered in 27% of leagues. Now, he didn't have a super productive day despite Justin Fields throwing for 335 yards and 4 scores. He hauled in 4 for 51. However, the Bears have plus matchups in each of the next 4 games against the Commanders, Vikings, Raiders, and Chargers. Now, it's interesting to note all 4 of these teams rank inside the top 12 of fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. So Darnell Mooney, I definitely think, is in play. And then we have Curtis Samuel. He had a solid day today, 751. He also had a goal line carry for a touchdown for 18 fantasy points. This is more of with a bye week here. I think he's somebody that you can look at maybe as a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. So somebody with a little bit of flex appeal here with Curtis Samuel. Terrace Marshall only rostered in 1% of leagues, but Marshall hauled in 9 of 10 targets today for 56 yards. Marshall has now seen an expanded role with Mingo's sideline with concussion. Uh, Terrace Marshall has now received 18 targets over the last 2 games. The Panthers will certainly be passing and in passing game scripts the next 2 weeks with matchups against the Lions and the Dolphins. So don't mind Terrace Marshall. This is probably a little bit more of a deeper league ad, but he has been productive and somebody that maybe has could experience a what is this year 3 breakout for Terrace Marshall. So we've been kind of hoping that could turn it together. He last year he kind of popped at a couple times last year, never really was able to put it together. So we'll see on Terrace Marshall. But as long as he's going to continue to see this type of target share, he is definitely worth a look. And then lastly, I did want to hit on Trey Palmer, mainly because Mike Evans left today with a hamstring injury. We have no idea how significant this will be. Now the Bucks are on bye this week, but if he's going to miss extended period of time, Trey Palmer could be an interesting ad. We have to remember Trey Palmer, rookie wide receiver. He recorded the fastest 40-yard dash at the combine and was top 5 among all college wide receivers last year in yards per route run. So he is a productive wide receiver, and he could definitely see his role grow immensely if Mike Evans were to miss any time. But as of right now, I still kind of have him as a deeper league ad.
Before I jump over to tight ends, did want to know what about Romeo Dobbs? Any interest in him?
Oh, absolutely. But I look at Romeo Dobbs as much more of a. I feel like considering Romeo Dobbs has been the starting wide receiver for the Packers all year. I mean, outside of now Christian Watson coming back, if Romeo Dobbs is by any chance out there, but the last I saw where I looked at, he was a roster in over 50% of leagues. Like if he's sitting out there, absolutely, Romeo Dobbs is probably would be the top guy on this list.
Got it. Let's go ahead and move over and wrap things up with the tight ends. Not a ton of love here in terms of streaming options, especially because some of the teams that we have on bye. But Logan Thomas, if you're looking for a consistent option, I mean, this dude is just basically going out and getting you 7 to 9 points every single week. Doesn't have a massive ceiling, but consistency is the calling card here with Logan Thomas. Came back from his concussion today, did the same thing that he always does. So you can look to him. Luke Musgrave going up against the Raiders has a nice spot here, but we have to wait to see if he passes concussion protocol. So that's the thing we have to watch with him. Chico Conquo, he's been dominating the routes run among the tight ends, but just hasn't been getting the targets. I mean, D-Hop has been banged up. We know from last year that he can produce on limited looks, but it's really thin there. Jake Ferguson is the guy that I would look to in terms of the top tight end streamer if you're not going to go with Logan Thomas, because he does have a higher ceiling. He's been relatively consistently involved the past couple of weeks, but we've really seen the past 2 weeks where his production has seen a tick up. Went for 7 for 77 in today's game, and then last week went for 5 for 48. So Jake Ferguson would be the guy that I'd be looking at if you're not going to go after Logan Thomas.
All right. Yep. And that will pretty much do it for the waivers. Let's see. Is there any questions in here?
We did have one from Terry.
Isaac TFA Dan was going to pick up Michael Wilson before the game. Now going to have to pay. Yeah. I don't know if you're going to have to pay significantly for Michael Wilson, but I definitely think he's definitely worth a look within this offense. But yeah, that is a a little frustrating. But Terry down 16.96. Should I roll with Gino or pivot to Daniel Jones?
I'd still go Gino there.
Probably. I don't mind. Like Daniel Jones is so frustrating because he has a game where a couple weeks ago where he put up almost 40 because he does have that rushing upside that he
Then he gives you
possesses. But
4.
what?
And then he gives you 4.
Yes, yes. So it is super frustrating, but I think Gino makes the most sense. But Daniel Jones is someone intriguing with what he brings to the table. And then I don't really see. Not good at fantasy. Do you all think the points gap between Kelsey and Andrews Hawkinson is going to be as big as it was last year based on the first couple of weeks? I'm not overvaluing what happened. One, he missed the first game of the season with Travis Kelsey. Last week he did score, but they also boat raced the Bears last week. And so they didn't really have to do anything after the first half. Obviously, tonight is a lot different with how this offense is operating, at least from the second quarter on at this point. But I think Travis Kelsey is definitely going to be fine. And I do think that he is certainly the number one tight end that I want to add, or not add, that own at this point.
Yeah.
Should I trade Tua for Jalen Waddle? Try to get Devonta Smith for something else? I got Lamar Jackson. Oh, yeah. If you can trade Tua for Jalen Waddle, I'm about that life all day, especially when you got Tua or Lamar
Yeah.
Jackson, excuse me.
Yeah. If you have both, you could always. This is something I do too. Kind of make your league decide for you. You can put both guys up in the block. Say I want a wide receiver for one of these guys, and then just take the best offer you get. But if you could do that right now, I wouldn't mess around and I would do that.
Absolutely. All right. That is the last of the questions. I appreciate everybody rocking with us. Let's go ahead and get out of here, get back to this game tonight. But we will be back again this week with some videos. Obviously, our rankings videos will be out. Then we go live on Wednesday, go live for DFS on Thursday. Do it all again like we do every week. So appreciate everybody rocking with us. We'll be back again shortly, and we'll see you guys soon. Have a good rest of the night. Bye.